So I want to talk about the difference between wholesaling and fix and flips and like the risk reward. And this is just how I see it. A lot of people probably see this differently. But I just want to talk about this because I think a lot of people get told that wholesaling is like the best way to get started. And it usually is, but not always, right? So, you know, everyone always likes to say that wholesaling is the less risky way to get started, pretty much, right? So, from a risk reward standpoint, here's kind of how I see it, right? With wholesaling, you invest a bunch, like thousands in time and money, and with no guarantee that you will ever get a deal, right? And granted, there's like KPIs, and you can tell that like you send out this much marketing, you hit this many Facebook ads, you do this many cold calls, you're bound to get whatever amount of deals out of that, right? But those are just predictions, right? It's not like set in stone. It's just from what you've seen previously on, let's just say 10,000 mail pieces, you get like, I don't know, 5 deals, right? And that's just what you've seen before. Maybe that doesn't work anymore and you do 10,000 mail pieces and get 0 deals and crickets, right? So to me, that's way more risky. And I think the thing that people really don't take into account is the time they're investing in actually doing that stuff. It's one thing that it costs you thousands and thousands of dollars in actual marketing to get that much out, but the time you're spending investing is way more valuable than the thousands you're spending in actual monetary money to get those deals, right? But flipping, on the other hand, let's just say someone brings me a deal, a wholesaler usually, and it's at a discounted price, right? And they bring it to me and they're like, hey, look, this house is 50K. They probably got under contract for 40. So they make 10, 15, whatever they make, it doesn't matter. As long they can make 100, I don't care. As long as the numbers work on my end, right? So they bring me a discounted deal, let's say for 40K. I got to put 20 into it. So I'm all in at 60. And I know I can sell the house for 120 because I can look at my comps and see the exact same house selling for 120, right? So for me, the risk is much, much less on looking at it that way because I know how much I'm going to pay. I know how much my rehab is, and I'm super conservative on my rehab all the time. So let's just say it costs me 15. I'm going to add another 5K in there just to be safe, another 10K, whatever, depending on what the house needs. I'm going to add in that extra money just because you never know, right? And I think that's the excuse people use to say that flips are way more risky because there is that unknown, right? You can take all the paneling down in the basement and find that the foundation's screwed and you got to do a whole bunch of foundation work, right? But that's why you have to always be conservative on your numbers, right? And always add a big buffer in there to make sure, you have that margin. But I guess that's the point is with a flip, exactly more than with wholesaling, I think, what you're getting into, right? You're buying this house for 40, you're putting 20 into it, and you're going to be able to sell for 120. So you can see what your end goal is, right? So on that, let's just say after fees and everything else, you make 40K, right? So your 60K investment, you make 40K on it. That's not bad at all. With wholesaling, you can spend 60K on marketing and you might see a return, you might not, right? You just don't know. Like I said, you can look at your KPIs, but you just don't know. So to me, flipping is safer because I know what my end result can be. And let's just say the foundation's bad, the house has termites, all the mechanicals are bad, and you end up not making any money. But that's like absolute worst case. You still sell it and get your money back, right? You just wasted your time. But with wholesaling, you dump that, I don't know, let's just say 60K into it, you get nothing in return, you got nothing, essentially. So that's just kind of how I look at it. I know a lot of people disagree and think that, wholesaling is much safer and less risky than flipping, but it also depends on how much knowledge you have and how much experience you have, right? Because if you have no idea what you're doing in either one, then they're both equally as risky. But, right, if you have good knowledge on both of them, that's just kind of how I see it. And I don't know if you see it differently. Let me know. That's just kind of like my viewpoint on it. It might be right or it might be wrong, but that's just kind of how I see things. So yeah, with flips, you kind of have an idea of what your end is, whereas with wholesaling, you can predict what your end can be, but it's not a for certain thing. So hope this video made sense. And if you have any questions or if you think otherwise, let me know.